Hi guys, welcome to The Social Block, the podcast where we explore the intersection between blockchain and society. Together, we explore how this new technology can shape our culture, our individual lives, our institutions, pretty much everything on the way to creating a more empowered and equitable society. I'm your host, Maggie, and it's lovely to have you with us here today. If you're a fan of the podcast, feel free to like this episode. If you haven't subscribed already, go ahead and do that. It'll help us keep the podcast running and also bring you more and really interesting episodes. We've also prepared a quick survey for you today. It can help us figure out what topics you like, what you want to hear about, what guests you want to see. So please fill out the survey. It will literally take you 5 minutes and radically improve the podcast. So without further ado, let's get into our episode for today. Our guest is Andrea Chang. She's a partner at NGC Ventures. She's based in Taiwan and in the Western US at various times. So we've got a really interesting guest for you today. We talked about Bitcoin Layer 2. We talked a little bit about Ethscriptions and things like DeFi, investment in DeFi. And then finally, we went on to talk a little bit about narratives in the crypto space and why they're so important. So let's get cracking. Hi, Andrea. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm good. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Thanks for the invitation. I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah, it's lovely to have you on as well. I'm really excited to have our discussion. So do you want to start us off by telling us a little bit about yourself and also about NGC Ventures?
Yeah, sure. My name is Andrea. I'm currently partner at NGC Ventures. I focus mainly on deal sourcing and thematic research for the fund. For the fund itself, NGC Ventures was established since 2018, and it is the fund that was one of the earliest institutional investors in the cryptocurrency space. We started in Shanghai office and Singapore office, and then expand to US and Taiwan. For myself, I'm mainly based in Taiwan and West Coast in the US. And in terms of sectors, we invested mainly in DeFi and infrastructure. We also invested in some consumer applications, including GameFi and Metaverse, like a few years ago. But now, given this is our first fund with external LPs, we will focus on DeFi and infrastructure based on the preference of the managing partners and LPs.
So quick question about like their preference. You mentioned that they have like a preference towards DeFi and infrastructure. Like what's the motivation behind investing in those two rather than the applications like GameFi, for example, directly?
Yeah, sure. I think the most direct answer is that we feel that compared to most of the consumer applications, like we have more assurance and feel more comfortable in investing in infrastructure wise, mainly because these projects already have valuation proven in the secondary market, whereas whereas in this past year or so, a lot of consumer projects, when we met them, they haven't attracted enough user base, and also their marketing and product positioning was not very clear. And another more direct answer is that for us, we are not gaming focused in the past. We were entrepreneurs and crypto native people. And for games, we did invest in some bigger gaming focused fund like Bigcraft and Griffin Partners. But for the fund itself, we are extra selective in the consumer and gaming space. But we are still open-minded if we really come across projects with enough user base and token usage.
So I think we can move on to like our first bigger topic, which is Bitcoin Layer 2s. I'm very interested in Layer 2s because I feel like they kind of, for me, beg the question, well, is Bitcoin the next Ethereum? Is that what they're trying to do? Make it a multi-asset kind of chain, have NFT like structures and capabilities. And I'm wondering, like, does Bitcoin really need layer twos? Like, what do you think of that? And like, are you investing in any specific layer two solutions that you can like give us an example of?
Yeah, sure. So quick answer about the fund investments. Right now, we haven't really invested in any new layer two for now, but we did see a lot of newer solutions in the space. That's why we are willing to look closer in the sector. But we did talk quite often with projects like Stacks Foundation. They leverage Bitcoin security and allow developers to build the apps, DeFi on top of it, leveraging Bitcoin network. So I would categorize layer two as like one of the solutions for Bitcoin scalability. But there are definitely like other factions, right? Within that, like taproot assets. And personally, I'm looking closer into RGB protocol as well. So so there are many solutions, but as a fund, we don't want to miss any potential opportunity, because sometimes it's not about like which one will take off in the short term. It also reflects that in the long term, which one will outperform and what will be the sentiment in the secondary market as well. I feel that like in the recent months, because of the Bitcoin ETF, more eyes are on Bitcoin sector as a whole. And they're like in terms of numbers and like tokens performance, like a lot of narratives are forming around Bitcoin ecosystem. And another, to answer your question, like layer two and the Bitcoin native open source upgrade, like Taproot assets, and something like DLC, like discrete lock contract that enables Bitcoin to achieve private, like smart contract. It's also some main topics that I pay a lot of attention inside the Bitcoin network.
Yeah, can you elaborate on DLC? Because I feel like, you have all sorts of layer twos that enable smart contracts for Bitcoin, and that there's a million applications for smart contracts. Really, we see them across the Ethereum space, be it like, mortgages, loans, whatever. But what's different with DLC?
Yeah. So in short, like DLC enables like projects to achieve point-to-point private smart contract, and it also utilize like an Oracle that can feed real-world data, so that it achieves two things. One is like private smart contract. Another is the integration to reflect how the real-world data can be. So in terms of project-wise, like most of the projects that I come across are relatively early in the space. Some of them are trying to bring into a newer, like new version of WBTC, like Wrap BTC, using DLC, and some of them are building like Bitcoin self-custodial exchange that allows you to trade your Bitcoin without needing to like move Bitcoin out of your wallet. So I think
non-custodial, like wallet directly to exchange kind of situation.
Yeah. And there are also Bitcoin wallet leveraging this technology as well. So this is a rather earlier space, but as these projects grow bigger, and then when they fit more into our investment mandate, I'm like we are more than happy to check out. Yeah.
Okay. And what like real world applications do you personally see for DLC? Like, what do you imagine people using it for in the future? Like, say you and me, we decide we're going to create this kind of smart contract. What do we want to use it for?
Yeah. I feel like a good thinking will be what happened in the ERC20 world, right? Because sometimes history rhymes as itself. So I think the first application that a lot of people, and actually that's already proved by some of the projects, is that people will want to build like trading exchange on top of it. Because like this is for entrepreneurs, like this is where a lot of money can happen, and like where a lot of trading activities and commission can be generated. And it's also more like accepted by like users. But if it's like a social or a consumer application, then sometimes the entrepreneurs will need to think about the target clients, the user base, whether the market fit, and marketing. So that's my personal takeaway. And if I have the ability to build something on DLC, I think I would want to focus more on financial products as well.
So sticking to financial applications still. Okay, interesting. Yeah, because I was thinking, I feel like, with this kind of new technology, in order for us to onboard people, for there to be adoption of this like Bitcoin layer 2 solutions and stuff, I was wondering, like, because literally Bitcoin and Ethereum, they all seem to have the same problem, and it's just kind of adoption, that it's not user friendly, and the user friendly solutions are actually usually solutions that are built on smart contracts and stuff like that. So I was thinking, like, with layer 2s, this could probably actually make Bitcoin accessible to people, understandable, usable, even kind of like what the browser is to the internet. That's my personal take on why layer 2s would be interesting, and why that, like, your like financial solution with like DLC would actually only be adopted like when we have some kind of solution like that with Bitcoin, something user friendly, which I don't see it happening without layer 2. So yeah, I'm actually really excited about layer 2s. It's something that we don't talk about a lot in the context of Bitcoin, but you're so right that like Bitcoin has been getting more noise around like the whole thing with ETFs. And we need that because people are actually really building, this is like a huge blockchain. It's the biggest, most famous one, but we don't talk enough about like the innovation going on in it. Everything is like more Ethereum focused. But I wanted to go back to something that you said. You said Taproot assets, and I was reading the news about it last week with Lightning Labs releasing it and everything, and like enabling the potential for Bitcoin to become a multi-asset chain. Like, what do you make of that? Where is this going for people? Like, how are we going to use Bitcoin as a multi-asset chain? And do we really need another chain that can do that?
Yeah, I think right now it still depends on like what the developers and the entrepreneurs can build assets upon that. Because right now they offer a standard, but eventually for funds and for users, like we won't know how it will be when there's a actual product to test it. Because even for like the like take DLC for example, like there are quite a few teams building around that. But until they bring more presence to the end user, like we can't really know what the market will like. Because right now, if it's too early, it's just developers and investors, but we are not their target end users. So my personal feeling is that like no matter what the standard offering now and potential, I think it's good. But until like they really deliver or some team actually deliver based on that, we never know. But I think an interesting take is that when the announcement come up, a lot of people were saying that like RGP like protocol also can potentially have similar thesis. So that's why I'm trying to like dig deeper into that section as well. So so I think that also reflects that like as a fund, like this is a category that we're looking into deeper, and I personally know that some of my friends' fund, they also do the same.
Yeah. I think I completely understand what you're saying. I'm also like, I'm reading about all of this innovation, and I'm trying to tie it into, what I kind of specializes in, like actual applications of blockchain in our daily lives. And I still can't see it with like a multi-asset Bitcoin. I have to see what they make first with the technology. But it's really good that like the layers of the technology are now there so that people can start having ideas and actually building them out. So, I mean, it's something I love about Bitcoin anyways. Like someone creates something, like the ability for something, and then someone else is like, I think I can make money out of this. I have an idea. So it's my kind of favorite thing about it, I guess. I think I wanted to like talk a little bit about like the potential for NFTs on the Bitcoin network as well, because we already have like a layer 2 like Rootstock that, enable the option for it. We have Bitcoin Ordinals, and is there anything like specific that, you think about NFTs on the Bitcoin network versus NFTs on Ethereum that you find specifically interesting or more applicable to basically, for use cases that we're not already looking at?
I think for right now, for the consumer point of view, whether this NFT is from Bitcoin or from Ethereum, I feel like for mass users, they didn't care that much. But that that's why we see a lot of. But I think a good thing about NFT in general is that a lot of brands, like this year, they started to register their patents around NFT technologies. So even though on the retail market there was a lot of like things happening on Azuki on the H side that reflected the price, but on the like branding or brand companies or corporate level, like NFT is actually having good progress, and that also reflects that in the GameFi and like decentralized metaverse application space, NFTs are still a thing, and
NFTs are like the bread and butter of the metaverse and GameFi, I guess. Like at least that's how I see it.
Yeah, and I personally also like look closer into like Ordinals as well. So I think like so for the Ordinal, it can open up its own ecosystem, but now NFT it's like their first main data style that can that can embed it in the Ordinal protocol. So that's how I would interpret like NFT in Ordinals right now.
Interesting. I was just curious because I feel like we have we have so many applications for NFTs already on Ethereum. It would be really interesting to have like them on a second chain. But yeah, ultimately, I do feel like for a user like me, whether it's on Bitcoin or Ethereum, doesn't matter all that much. Like maybe it would affect the speed of the transaction if I'm like transacting with it, but right now, I agree with you. It's kind of not as significant.
Yeah, but personally, like I also bought some like Ordinal NFT earlier this year. I think like right now on the very practical level, most of the NFTs, I think some of them are like alpha group. Like if you have that NFT that enables you to enter some secret channel on Discord, and then in the Discord, a lot of people were discussing like what's the latest coin on Ordinals and what is the latest alpha in the ecosystem. So I think that's the more common use cases that I saw that built around the Ordinal NFT for now. But there are definitely like more categories, like some Ordinal NFT, they try to build a game and integrate the use case of it. And some of them like label the Ordinal NFT as an art itself. So there are a lot of things happening too.
Yeah, I kind of wish there was a little bit more like, I guess, noise around this kind of stuff. I wonder why that is, like just socially, why we're so focused on Ethereum and like not so focused on these like same solutions that can bring different things from Bitcoin. But that's a topic for another podcast, I guess.
I see.
Yeah. I mean, I guess a last question before like we can kind of meander on to like more DeFi-ish topics. I wonder like purely socially, what do you think will happen if we suddenly go from like seeing Bitcoin as this very successful one-trick pony, it is very good at doing this very one thing, and then Ethereum as being this very flexible network that is like maybe a little bit more congested, a little bit like more chaotic? What would happen if suddenly those two networks kind of even out? What do you think we would see in the blockchain space then? How would blockchain then be perceived in the world?
I see. I think it will first of all like more different backgrounds of developers, because not like for my observation, I feel that like each developer may have their own favorite like coding language, right? And so that's why like we have EVM and non-EVM project, and if we have like Bitcoin in the space, that will also bring maybe the Bitcoin community into the development as well. That's why I'm other than Ordinals, I personally also check very closely about the Ethscription community. So it is like the Ordinals for Ethereum. So like recently they are also preparing to issue their own version of EVM. That's really interesting to me.
Just to kind of stop you real quick for our listeners, Ethscriptions are when like basically the data, like the actual NFT-like data, is embedded into the call data of the transaction, right? Yeah, I got that right.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
because it's not something that everybody would know.
Yeah, and one of the reasons why like Bitcoin Ordinals or Ethscription got so much traction is that it lowered the cost, like gas fee for users and development fee for coders. So theoretically, it can lower the entry barrier for more people. So to answer your question, like if we see Bitcoin in the space, then that also includes like Ordinals community, right? And that potentially can open up more people that aren't willing to pay the gas fee. That's what I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, ultimately, I think right now we're looking mostly in terms of the biggest hurdle for Bitcoin, Ethereum, blockchain adoption is user friendliness. But I also see that in future, gas fees might become the next big hurdle because, who would want to pay like horrible amounts of money to make their transactions, because it is getting more expensive. We can all see that. We are like developing all these scalability issues to make transactions cheaper, but they're not expensive enough yet that we're thinking about it. But look at what's happening in the banking space. People when they're making an international transfer, they're always just like, I think it'll be cheaper if I maybe use TransferWise or something like that. So yeah, I think that makes a really good point that like Ethscription is like very, very tightly connected to like this gas fee situation that we're trying to avoid. Yeah. So anything else you want to add for like Bitcoin and Bitcoin layer 2s that you're really like wanting to talk about right now before we move on to DeFi?
Not for now. I think we're pretty well covered.
Yay. You got it. So for DeFi, what are some of the latest trends in DeFi that you think have had a great impact on like the world at large?
I think one vertical that I look closer is LSDFi, because I saw the number that from January to around this year, it has already up like 60 times, not 60%, but 60 times in terms of the value that is involved. So I think like every bull cycle in terms of DeFi, there was like a trigger point, and usually it's related to yield farming or leverage, which increases the capital involved. And LSDFi, to me, they offer another layer of leverage for your staked Ethereum. So that's why like LSDFi is a topic or the vertical that I focus more on secondary and primary deals as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so yield farming and staking, or like the two big trends that you're following?
Mostly LSD, because LSDFi is like DeFi built on top of the LSD, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Liquid staking.
Yeah.
So that's why these applications are in my eyes, and also LSDFi sometimes is not just related to any particular applications. It also has some amplified effect, such as some like Curve. You can use LSD to mint a stablecoin. So it's so it has a repercussion effect. Yeah.
Would you say how would that impact the smaller person? Just how does one go into that sector of DeFi as a smaller investor, not as a fund? And what are the benefits for the individual?
I think is that most direct is that you have more freedom and leverage for your staked assets, right? In the past, like once you stake your Ethereum, you can't do any other thing. But with DeFi, because you can use the tokens to go to other platforms to generate more yield, it basically increase your revenue stream. Yeah.
Yeah, I think like what's cool about this is that like with DeFi, everything is like progressing pretty fast, right? So if staking Ethereum a year ago was kind of like the go-to way to say generate yield or whatever, but you can't use it, you can't be flexible with it. Now we already like just a year later we have the next solution, and that kind of begs the question for me, where like DeFi's innovative and edgy spirit is going to fit in the financial world. Like, where do you see this kind of solution literally living? Because I think, like, my personal thesis is that these TradFi and DeFi, they can't live separately forever. I think they're going to merge. And I was wondering what you think, like, where DeFi's space is going to be in our so-called banking lives in the future.
Yeah, I think the most direct phenomenon I saw is the sector of RWA. Given that right now in traditional finance world, you can already get like 6 to 7% with your fiat, and a lot of like DeFi projects, like blue chip DeFi or newer DeFi, they recognize that and they try to like utilize the real world yield and offer to DeFi. Like some projects, they allow you to deposit your stablecoin, but they like bought the bonds or they get their real world yield from the traditional finance world. So I would view like RWA as a bridge between DeFi and CeFi. And I think for the ideal scenario is that like more like traditional institutions or banks, they adopt or they buy coins directly, right? Right now, the most obvious one is the Bitcoin ETF. But I know that some of the banks, they already have digital asset department, whether it's on research or they participate in governance or investing funds under the water. So I think there are already some big movements in the space. It's just...
I think we saw that. I think that was what initially underpinned the 2020, 2021, essentially, bull cycle, was the institutional involvement, which really involved banks. And I think that that's still there. And it's just a matter of fact, in the next cycle, we're going to just see it more publicly again. It's a little bit more hidden. I mean, what you said was really good is like how are people essentially going to get exposure to the tools that DeFi gives us? Well, through real world assets, RWA. And I think that like, you were talking about bonds and I guess like more traditional stocks and stuff, but I think that could probably expand to assets like physical assets, even like just real estate or whatever. I think that could be like it could flow through banks right straight to DeFi and then like be a bridge between the end user.
Yeah.
At least that's what my mind is like doing right now. It's like trying to connect the dots between, people like me who, I would love to one day fiddle around with DeFi. I don't, because I don't really know how. But, if my bank is able to somehow use it and I'm, with my bank, that would be great. Like, it's like, please.
Yeah, definitely.
Why in general, like, would you say, are you so bullish on DeFi in general? Like, do you have a specific reason? Like, that's personal to you.
I think, like, in practical, if we look at the investable vertical in Web3 as a whole, it's usually like consumer facing, right? Like GameFi, Metaverse, and then a bunch of like projects and liquidity is around DeFi projects, and then it's infrastructure. So if a fund missed DeFi, it's actually very hard to invest, especially because for infrastructure, for a lot of funds, when we receive the deals, is already like rather later stage. So usually the valuation is already quite high. But for DeFi projects, I feel there are more deals like at early stage that all the funds, big or small, can capture. So so realistically speaking, if a fund doesn't invest in DeFi, they miss a lot of opportunities as a whole. So I think that's the fund perspective. And another on the second.
What about your personal perspective? Like I'm interested in the Andrea perspective as well.
Yeah, I think for like even if I'm like a secondary retail trader, right? Um, if you miss like DeFi, like it miss a lot of potential basically because if we see in the past cycle during the DeFi summer, like Compound opens up the wave of this DeFi lending and borrowing, and if like this cycle going to emerge, in bull market, every sector will go up, and in terms of because it has leverage, the TVO potential like can be higher. Yeah, so that's why I think for both institution and personal, like both are like great sectors to look at.
Awesome. Well, we kind of went through DeFi, but I wanted to also ask you about something that like I noticed that you talk about, like I listened to one of your podcasts before, and it was basically narrative building in crypto. And it's because I work in PR for crypto, and we deal with a lot with like, narrative, what our brand's story is, what our speakers' stories are. It's fascinating, really. And I noticed that you put a lot of emphasis on what that means for a company. So why do you think that narrative is so important in crypto specifically with young companies?
Yeah, sure. So I feel like for narratives, right, it has the implications for like fundraising, for marketing and community loyalty. That's what I feel. Because if you see at sometimes when we say that when you do primary investments in Web3, you also need to see what happened in the secondary market. I think that's also one of the bigger difference compared to traditional venture capital market, because these two are highly related and the life cycle is very short. So if you look at secondary market, every time there's a narrative coming or that the sector of that tokens will perform very well. So I think in both primary and secondary, like narratives are important in these ways. And also in the bull market, I view it as a leverage for projects to understand what the market sentiment wants. And also in a bear market, is also a good way to present yourself and communicate with potential users and investors.
You said so many things there that like just really resonate with some of the very like key points in the blockchain space. The first one I kind of remember off the top of my head is the thing you said about community, because communities are a lot stronger in blockchain than I think they are in almost any other industry. They are just like the make it or break it of your project. It doesn't matter how good of a value proposition you have. If you're live and you're out there and you don't have a community kind of, just raving about you on X or whatever, you don't really have much. And like ultimately what it comes down to with crypto, I think with like narratives as well, where I put a huge emphasis is that crypto is this like abstract technological thing. It's this live ecosystem, but ultimately it's made up and kept by human beings. And human beings, they don't respond so much to numbers and statistics, or sometimes even like literally value. They respond to stories and to some like, so essentially like the way I see narratives is like just bringing the story closer to like just making crypto more human. Essentially, that's kind of how I see it. And so can you give us an example of like a very impressive and like successful or like a very tragic like narrative of a company, just something to give our listeners like an actual example of what we're talking about?
Sure. I think a good example would be like a few years ago, there was a metaverse narrative, right? And so before like Facebook changes its name to Meta, like there were actually a lot of development and progress in the metaverse space, both like in the Web2 world and in the Web3 world, where we see like a lot of hype around Sandbox and Decentraland. These are still projects that I personally like and play quite often. So around that time, like it becomes a big narrative because the Web2 part, like outside of crypto, are also very bullish about metaverse as a whole. There's actually a tendency of like narratives in crypto is that sometimes it reflects what the world outside likes. For example, recently is AI, right? And even gaming, although like GameFi is a special thing, Web3 in the outside of crypto, gaming itself also experience a lot of progress with the new technology. So going back to the metaverse example is that a lot of companies in the Web3 space, they raise a lot of money during that period. Some of them still deliver very well, and but some of them, like after they get the fundraise, like it's very hard to attract users for their consumer platform. So we see like winners in the space because they continue developing no matter the secondary performances. But for some projects, after they fundraise, like it's very hard for them to move forward because the market sentiment becomes colder, and that reflects the users' passion in trying their products.
Do you find that a lot of them tend to try to pivot and change their narrative, or like basically just ride a different wave? So they find a different, narrative, the different thing that people are really talking about to latch onto themselves? Like, and do you find that that's successful for them in terms of building their community, building their brand in the space and becoming recognizable and successful?
Yeah. So actually the team that I respect the most is actually the ones that stick to their vision no matter the market narratives change. So and that's also where I see a lot of like big winners coming out. I think like there are some like founders that are more acceptable to different narrative change, but even that, like they incubate or support other teams to do that. They sometimes they don't do that themselves, because if a team like keeps changing direction, sometimes the community members will get confused as well. So I see like both.
Yeah, I think like that's kind of where like I was kind of thinking in that direction as well. It's like if you keep changing your fundamental narrative, you keep changing the direction, like your brand's mission. And like ultimately what puts people together is like a shared vision, a shared mission, a shared direction. And then at one point, if you keep changing that, it's not going to work. And also the thing about like brands, like it's not just a bunch of words that we put together. Like this is like so typical with like PR people and people who aren't in PR, for example. They think that building like a brand and building a tone of voice and a mission and a vision and like having it, they're just like, oh yeah, it's just a sentence, like you can change it anytime. It's not just a sentence. It's the sentence that defines the direction that the company is going in. And I find that like this is so typical, and it makes that direction human. That's like this fundamental thing.
Yeah. And also sometimes narrative can help to communicate what they are building as well. Like for example, right now, because metaverse is a very big name, I see some projects that they try to focus more. For example, they are like gaming, then they stick to gaming, or maybe NFT gaming or on-chain gaming or autonomous world, but they didn't use the name metaverse mainly just because that it caters more to the understanding of the retail users at the time. So yeah, but I totally agree your point.
Yeah. So how do you think people can catch like the next big narrative? How do you see it coming?
I think
this is particularly like applicable when you're dealing with investments, but it's applicable to like business and to me and like my work as well.
Yeah, sure. I think the like first thing is definitely to read a lot in terms of like news, like research. I think it's very hard to find a shortcut to understand like what the next big thing is. And the other thing I think it's will be helpful is that also pay attention to what happened outside of crypto. It doesn't have to be like that detailed into what kind of patent or what kind of news, but more of a general trend. For example, we are definitely in the general trend of AI. like AI now is very hot. There are also a lot of AI projects, but like even from 2016, there were a lot of discussions around AI as well. So if you follow the AI companies or startups in Asia or outside the world, you will know that like AI continues to be a big thing. And then when ChatGPT launch and become like an inflection point, the entrepreneurs can react quickly as to how it can affects to Web3. And as a retail user, you will understand that maybe there will be a window that like AI Web3 will have impact on the market. And I think the third thing is to talk to chat with more people, or watching interviews, because the biggest like hidden next big thing is something that we don't know, is outside of our awareness. And I feel that the most effective way is to listen to people that have a different background or different environment to know what we don't know. So I think these three are the
get exposure.
Yeah.
Speaking of different environment, it just occurred to me to ask, because you mentioned earlier that you were based in West Coast US and also Taiwan, and I wanted to ask you if like your experience in the Asian market is like different in terms of the trends going on there. Like, what do you see that's different in like the Asian trends in crypto versus, what's going on a little bit more in the West? Because I feel like there are different narratives and there's different areas of interest that we're blind to. Like, I mean, I'm based in Europe, so I don't really get to see a lot of the States or a lot of Asia either. So.
Sure. So I actually started my crypto career in Shanghai. I was at the Shanghai office for 2 years. So I witnessed the time before Chinese government shut down the crypto as a whole.
Yeah.
So at that time,
it just kept happening.
At that time, a lot of crypto communities, a lot of exchanges at that time were still based in China. And then so there was a vibrant community and investor base in China at that time. And then in Southeast Asia, like gaming activities, consumer, a lot of like Western projects, they also like deploy their marketing or BD team in Southeast Asia as a gateway to Asia as a whole as well. And then you have Korea market, which definitely has very like active activities, like in the secondary exchange space. That's where we saw a lot of projects have so-called kimchi premium in the Korea market. But in general, I feel that is that the Chinese market or Asian market, there are a lot of very great developers and entrepreneurs, especially if we see like the like social or gaming. There was very high competition even in the Web2 space. And these entrepreneurs are very well trained in big corporates, or they have very rich experience in launching previous startups. So so that's what I feel, that the entrepreneurs and developer space are also very solid. And a lot of them have experience in launching like applications that have a lot of users, because like Chinese population is big. So I think so I think that's the main features that I see.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's cool, because I feel like I was just like kind of taking a page from your book, being like, well, she said talk to other people, so I'm just going to ask her straight up. Because when we're trying to kind of look at the Asian market and for example understand our Korean users, or the users we have across different countries, and there's actually like, and even with journalists, like I only have like a couple Chinese contacts, and we talk to them and they ask us stuff, because there's a huge language barrier, and that just only makes it harder. And I feel like the only way is to kind of talk to people who are in that market, because they are the only ones who can kind of come back to us. And because I can't go and like I mean, unfortunately, I don't speak Chinese. I wish, but I think that's a ways away for me still. So that was some interesting insight on the market there.
Yeah, I think another thing about Asia is that the population of some of the main countries are relatively young, and these are the like with the Gen Z and the internet age, they are actually natural target user of crypto and potentially GameFi and the apps as well. Yeah.
Okay, so since we're coming up to time, I thought I would ask you whether there's anything else you want to share, some final thoughts, any topic that we haven't covered and you just bursting to talk about.
Yeah, I think another area that I'm trying more to understand is like the social fi. Like fintech definitely causes a lot of wave. But I think there are more social related apps coming to space utilizing NFT and the tokens that may change between people and people. So so I think that would be great.
Yeah, I mean, I think I should do a whole episode on social fi. I think that's a huge topic. People are so obsessed with social media. Can you imagine where it goes from social media and finance together?
Yeah. And so it's basically everything, but I do think GameFi still in the when market becomes better, GameFi will still cause a lot of hit. Because compared to the last cycle, this time a lot of big gaming publishers, great founders, also are learning the lesson of the GameFi companies in the last wave and try to launch games that are more sustainable. So as long as there are one or two successful GameFi games, that will change the whole attitude from investors and users toward GameFi. So so I think that's another direction you can consider for your podcast.
Awesome. Well, thanks very much for joining me today, Andrea, and that wraps our episode for today. Bye.
Yeah, thanks for arrangement. Yeah, bye.
Alrighty, guys, that was our episode for today. And please like this episode if you liked it. Feel free to subscribe and remember our survey. That's it, and see you next time.